There's this narrative out there. Let me know if you agree with me, Jay, in the real estate investor community, in our space, that bigger is better. That in order to succeed and look successful, you have to do tons and tons of deals. You got to have a big team. Maybe, the word scale is used so much, and I've fallen into that trap. So I'm calling myself out there, but I'm so much more impressed by somebody who doesn't have to rely on doing a ton of deals, but their deals, it's high margin, low overhead. It's a lifestyle business. And correct me if I'm wrong, you spend what, less than 10 hours a week on your real estate investing business, and you net, 7 figures a year for the last 10 years?
That's correct. That's correct. And I agree. Bigger is not necessarily, better. In fact, one of my criteria on choosing what deals I want to do is, unless there's at least a very good possibility of making at least $50,000 on a deal, I don't want to mess with it.
I love it, man. I absolutely love it. And yeah, you get to be pickier, right? You get to cherry pick the best ones. And you and I both know people out there, God bless them, that they do a lot of deals, over 100, 200 deals a year. But they have this big team and this big overhead, and their margins are tiny. And I know people that, their revenue, their top line is 7 figures, but their bottom line is maybe a couple $100,000. And I don't know about you, but that's not why I got into business, to spin my wheels, pump out all these transactions to end up with just a relatively small amount of money relative to the number of transactions.
I agree. I mean, why did we get into this business? We didn't get into this business to replace a day job with, an entrepreneurial opportunity to where, you're back into the job thing. It's we got into it because my definition of freedom is being able to do what I want to do, with whom I want to do it, when I want to do it, where I want to do it, and how often I want to do it. And I can't choose, I can't have that freedom of choice if my business is running me instead of me running my business.
Bingo. Amen, my friend. Amen. So obviously private money has played a big role and has had a big impact on your success in your real estate business over the course of, the last several years. I'm curious, how did you get introduced to the world of private money? Tell your story about, you kind of getting hit in the head and taking it on the chin with bank financing and all that.
Yeah. So I didn't wake up one morning and say, hey, I'm going to go raise some private money. No. Right. It was a huge blessing in disguise. So Alex, my guess is more than once in your life, you have had a time in your life or an experience in your life, whether it was personal, business, relationship, whatever, that while you were going through it, you were going, oh my lands, how in the world am I going to get out of this? And then when you came out on the other side, you looked back, and it was actually a huge blessing in disguise. It's happened to us all the time, right? Right,
100%.
And of course, I think it happens to us all the time because God's involved in our life. So what happened? What happened? So I remember it, Alex, just like it was yesterday. It was January of 2009. January 2009. So from 2003, when Carol Jo and I started this business, so we've been full-time in this since 2003. From 2003 to 2009, I relied on local banks and mortgage companies to fund our deals. I didn't know there was any other way. I mean, back then, I never heard of terms. I never heard of wholesaling. I never heard of buying subject to the existing note. And I for sure had never heard of private money. So I picked up my phone right here, this actual receiver, and it was January 2009. I called up my banker. I had 2 houses under contract, and those 2 houses were over $100,000 in anticipated profit.
Okay.
And so I called up my banker, and I had this conversation many times, and I told him about the deals and the funding required and when I wanted and needed to close. And I learned very quickly on that phone call, Alex, that my lines of credit had been shut down and nobody had told me. And I had a great credit score. I had a 6-year running relationship with this particular bank and banker. And now I've got no way to fund my deals. So I hung up the phone, and in that experience, I coined one of my own mantras, which says it's impossible to fail until you decide to quit. And fear of loss lights a much bigger fire under my butt than hope of gain. And I'm getting ready to lose over $100,000, in potential profit on these deals. So I sit for a moment here and I say, what am I going to do? So I called my buddy Jeff, who was a real estate investor at the time in Greensboro, North Carolina, told him what had happened. He said, welcome to the club. They just cut me off last week at the local bank. I said, what are we going to do? So in that conversation, I learned about private money. I'd never heard of private money. And I don't mean I learned about hard money, all right? Hard money and private money is not the same thing. In fact, they're apples and oranges. So this is not institutional money. This is working with individuals. So I put my program on steroids, my private money program on steroids, and I put my teacher hat on, and I started teaching people that I know what private money is. None of them had ever heard of it. So in less than 90 days, I was able to raise and attract over $2 million in private money pledged. And you know what? I was able to close on those 2 deals. And since that time, I've never missed out on a deal for not having the funding. One big lesson I learned from that experience was the most dangerous number in any business is the number 1.